The Predators can go to bed tonight with a spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs. We'll take a look at all the different ways the Preds can punch their ticket tonight, plus preview tonight's showdown with the Calgary Flames and what needs to happen to recreate last week's big win. Plus, it's Hot Take Tuesday, and we got some spicy ones. Everything from UC Saros to the Preds defense to Luke Cunnin and some possible off-season trades. We'll look at them today on Locked On Predators.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. I'm Nick Morgan, our writer and editor at ontheforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I am Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at ontheforecheck.com.
So, playoffs.
Who knew?
Tonight. Yeah.
Maybe.
It would be nice.
It would be. Oh, gosh. Could we just catch a little bit of a break and catch our breath? It would be really nice to just lock this down.
Yeah, I would prefer not to go into the Colorado Avalanche game being like, wow, a win over the Avalanche will be what gets us there. I'd rather just lock it up now.
For sure. Let's just do it.
Let's just do it. So the Predators play the Calgary Flames tonight. 7 o'clock puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. And as we mentioned, there are 5 possible ways the Predators can get into the playoffs tonight. The easiest one is just win in regulation. Or you can also hope that Vegas loses to Dallas tonight. That would be the easiest one. And then there's like a couple of because of the tiebreakers and stuff. There's a little bit of nitpicky stuff like the Preds, if they beat Calgary in overtime and Vegas goes to overtime, or if they beat Calgary in a shootout and Vegas, goes into a shootout also. There's a lot of weird nitpicky stuff.
Yes.
NHL.com has all of them if you want to really get into the nitty-gritty, but let's just take care of business and just win. Just win. Yeah.
And this is one of those games where we know the Predators can beat Calgary. Not that it is an easy ask. It's not an easy ask, but they have done it before. And so let's just go in tonight and win this, hopefully knowing that they can clinch tonight against Calgary and knowing that they've been able to be successful against Calgary, not in regulation, but with a little extra bonus time. Hopefully that will be enough to keep the Predators kind of mentally on the level they need to be to come out of this and have a playoff spot one. Because look, here's what's real. I do not want to have to root for Dallas tonight.
No.
I just don't make me do that.
Well,
don't
ideally you would not like to cheer for Dallas at any point in time.
Oh yeah, they're in my invisible backpack of hockey grudges. The whole team just lives in there. Yeah.
I don't think it's invisible at this point. I think the Dallas grudge just kind of exists there.
It is. It's Santa's big sack. Yeah.
Yes. I'm not going to
that
comment with anything. I'm going to slowly move on. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you have, this is also the Predators' last home game.
Yes.
Of the season as well. They're going to get a huge boost from the crowd. They're going to be into it. And this is also a potential first round playoff matchup for the Preds as well. So there's a lot going on here, a lot to kind of get the energy up. To me, the big thing, Ann, is going to be, can the Preds harness that energy without going too overboard? I think they did a fantastic job of that last week when they played as well. In fact, I think we said it on this podcast, last week's game against the Flames was one of the best games all around we've seen from the Preds, in quite some time. So can they recreate that magic from last week and kind of feed off the crowd, but not go overboard? Because we see what happens when they do go overboard sometimes. They get a little bit reckless, and we've seen that in the past couple of games.
Yes. And this is one of those games, I think, as the Predators have played Calgary a couple of times, the emotional level is heightened each time. And last Tuesday's game was very emotional, very, kind of tense, kind of heated. And I think this will be even more so. And again, this could possibly preview a postseason matchup. So the Predators are going to go into this with a lot of energy. And I agree with you. One of the things that they've had to work on is sort of maintaining a good emotional energy, channeling that well. John Hynes always talks about don't get too high, don't get too low. And it's been something he's preached to this team all season long that they've really had to work on. I think that's been one of Hynes's kind of foundational issues with this team that he's tackled. And we've seen good results from it this year. So hopefully they can come in feeling, healthy, feeling energized, and not overcompensate for the weight of the game tonight and just come in and do what they've done before with Calgary, only this time in regulation.
Yeah, do it in regulation because that would help. And again, let's not cheer for Dallas. Let's not have to cheer for Dallas.
Nope.
It's funny when we talk about John Hynes and his not get too high, not get too low. I remember earlier in the year when the Predators started having this, kind of penalty heavy game.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody asked him about that. And he kind of said, it's our style. We kind of want to play like right on the line. And we just got to be careful not to go over that line. That's kind of been the big thing is the Predators a lot of times kind of go over that line. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want to discourage them from being aggressive, but at the same time, it's like you kind of got to, pick and choose your shots and not be reckless with your stick, not, kind of be aggressive to the point where you're doing something illegal to break up the play.
Right.
And that's something the Preds haven't really done well on. And against the Flames, it can cost them. I mean, they are a special teams dynamo, 8th in power play. And then just offenses off the charts, 3rd in the NHL in shot attempts this year, 2nd in high danger chances.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're going against that, you take those stats and you put them against the Preds defense that has been pretty porous over the last few months of the season. It can be disastrous if you don't come out with that mental focus tonight.
I agree. I think we're going to see it a lot in, like you were talking about, the penalty situation. I was really surprised after the Minnesota game in a lot of the post game, several different people kind of broached the penalty situation with John Hynes because that game was penalty palooza. And Hynes really took kind of an interesting, I thought, stance on it in that he wasn't really super worked up about the penalties, even though there were, 7 of them. But he did say things like stick penalties, like you shouldn't be hooking, you should not be high sticking. If you can clean those things up, I think John Hynes is okay with a roughing penalty. I think John Hynes is okay with, fighting penalty because that's sort of the DNA of this team. But you do have to clean up some of those other penalties. And those are some that I think come when you get caught up in the moment. So disciplined hockey is going to be important tonight with, balancing that with the weight of what this game could mean for this team. And it's big. I mean, did we really think at the beginning of the season, when you looked at this roster, did we think we would see the things that we are seeing now? Did we see Matt Duchene, Philip Forsberg, 40 goal scorers? Did we see Roman Josi, 90 points? This season has kind of evolved in a really interesting way. And I would hate to see the Predators not capitalize on that in this. Tonight is a big moment. We've talked about there have been must-win games recently. Tonight's kind of a big moment for the Predators, and it's going to be a maturity test and sort of an emotional health test for this team as they take the ice tonight.
Interesting call up today. Predators bring Matthew Olivier back up from Milwaukee, pulling the full Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's a name I haven't heard in quite some time. I mean, he's skating on the ice tonight. I would assume maybe Cunnin or Tolvanen out of the lineup because neither one of them really did anything against Minnesota or got a lot of ice time.
Yeah, I'm I wish good things for all people, but I would really like maybe to see Cunnin step out for a game. And Matthew Olivier brings with him just brute strength and physicality. He is maybe not your most highly skilled player, but this is somebody who is going to check. This is somebody who, if you look at him the wrong way, will talk about your mama. So this is an interesting call up. We haven't seen him for a while. Fits with the mold of what the Predators want, but I'm with you. I think the big question is who steps out. I would like to maybe see Cunnin step out, because I think people have been waiting and sort of percolating on the idea of like, okay, we're taking Tolvanen out for healthy scratches. What's Luke Cunnin got on Hines?
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting to see where Olivier slots into this lineup. But he's going to have an impact. Hopefully it will not be repeatedly going to the penalty box, which he has struggled with in the past. So we'll see what this one does. Interesting call up.
Yeah, and it feels like John Hines is just doing whatever he can at the moment to try to get some impactful depth, beyond that top line, beyond that herd line. They've tried to mix it up a little bit. They've, slid Tomasino and Tolvanen down to see if that helps. They've moved Luke Cunnin up with some of the top guys. They've done a lot of shuffling just to try to get some combination of depth, like impactful, offensive depth beyond those top two lines, and it just hasn't worked. And it gets to the point where it's like, okay, maybe it's not the chemistry, maybe it's not the combination, maybe it's just these players aren't, having we've talked about Luke Cunnin not having that great of a season. But we've also talked a little bit about, Ellie Tolvanen is, there's some positivity in the microstats.
True.
Yes. He's doing some things really, really well, but I think compared to what he did last year and what our expectations were for him this year, I think it's safe to say he's been a disappointment as well. Plus, in the playoffs, you just kind of need, a certain type of player, a certain type of role. We saw Matthew Olivier come in last year and play a certain type of role really, 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 really. Yes. I'm not going to try to say really, really again because I can't talk today. But yeah, that's, this is kind of an audition for, hey, who's going to kind of be useful in a specific role when we get to the postseason. And again, against Calgary, a team you might play, it's not a bad time to start auditioning people.
Very true. I wonder, there's a part of me that wonders if they would slot him in on the herd line and maybe bump Jeannot up, because Jeannot has been very quiet offensively. And I wonder if they want to kind of situate him somewhere else briefly to spur something on. I don't know. That herd line has been very quiet, and I think that's something that's going to need to course correct before the postseason, because you absolutely have to count on them for offense.
Well, remember, that was the original herd line last year.
True. Yes.
Was Olivier instead of Jeannot. So, maybe Jeannot is, we've seen him kind of move up in the lineup at times this year, play with, either Matt Duchene or Ryan Johansen and do very, very well. So, maybe that's the secret to kind of unlocking some of the Predators' depth. And then you give the herd line still three guys playing very, very well.
Yes.
Just a different person and somebody who's had past chemistry there. So, certainly not opposed to that. Predators versus Flames tonight, 7:00 puck drop. Full recap of that coming up tomorrow, but it is Hot Take Tuesday. We have some juicy ones on a number of different topics, including the playoffs and some potential off-season trades. So we'll get to that in just a second. But first, want to mention today's show brought to you by our friends at HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm-fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your doorstep. So you can skip the trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why it's America's #1 meal kit. Talked about this before. I'm a loyal HelloFresh guy. If I'm busy up to my neck in hockey nonsense, whatever, I'll schedule a box so I don't have to waste my time and energy planning, grocery shopping, any of that. Nope. Instead, HelloFresh sends me all the recipes, all of the perfectly pre-portioned ingredients. And because they're quick and easy to put together, it only takes me 20 to 25 minutes to get a delicious farm fresh meal on my plate in front of me. They have recipe collections for any sort of life situation, family friendly for people like Anne, who basically have to feed an entire herd. They have stuff like fit and wholesome meals, quick and easy meals, plus plenty of low carb and veggie options. HelloFresh is also a proud partner of the Nashville Predators and fueling hockey fans everywhere. So go to HelloFresh.com/LockedPredators16 and use code LockedPredators16 for up to 16 free meals and 3 free gifts. Again, that is HelloFresh.com/LockedPredators16 and code LockedPredators16 at checkout. Well, it is Hot Take Tuesday, and it's one of our favorite shows we do.
Yeah, always interesting. Always interesting.
Yeah, so what we do is we basically open the floor to you guys, the listeners. We ask you to send in tweets, DMs, Facebook comments, YouTube comments. Let us know just your overall thoughts on the team. If there's a player that's hot or maybe not getting enough credit, we want to hear it. Lots of stuff. These are always fun. Basically, what Ann and I are going to do is we're going to grade them. We are going to grade them on the spicy meter. If it's something that we kind of think is far-fetched, it'll be a very, very hot take. If it's a cold take, that's not a bad thing. That means, yeah, we agree with you. That's kind of a fact. That would be like saying Bridgestone Arena is located on Lower Broad. Yes, there's no debate about that. So, Ann, would you like to see what people have for us?
All right, so let's see. Some of these came in as questions, but let's go ahead and all right, let's rephrase them as hot takes. All right. So we have JW Hood 3. And he said, with as good as Glass looked, should he have stayed in the lineup? Let's rephrase that. With as good as Glass looked, he should have stayed in the lineup. What's your take?
I would say this is a fairly cool, brisk day take.
Yeah.
You know, this is like where you may or may not need a light jacket, depending on your level of cold tolerance.
Like April 25th, the perfect date.
Yeah.
Not too hot, not too cold. You just need a light jacket.
Yeah. I put that on Instagram like 4 years ago and thought I was like so clever. And now it's like every white girl I follow has that as their thing. Maybe I'm just the trendsetter. Yeah. Hey, Cody Glass. I really liked his game.
Yes.
Came back from Milwaukee. In fact, Sean and I, while you were out, and Sean Smith from On the Forecheck came on, did a podcast, and we talked in depth about Cody Glass and just sort of how he bought into the Preds identity and kind of reshaped his game in Milwaukee. And you saw it. I mean, he was very impactful. Would I have loved to see him maybe stay up and see if maybe he can kind of be the bee in the bonnet of one of these first round playoff opponents for the Preds? But you know, I get it. You know, you want him on kind of the slow burn. You don't want to rush him. You don't want to, throw him in kind of a weird situation that fast. So I get it, and plus the Milwaukee Admirals are going to be in the playoffs too.
You wonder how much of that factored into this decision.
I would say some, right?
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah. What's your take? What's your take on Glass?
I really liked what we saw from Cody Glass. I think he was a very different player when he came back than he was at the beginning of the season. And I think everybody can see his trajectory was headed in the right direction. I also agree with you. The Predators are a slow burn team. They are marathon developers. They are not sprinters. So, am I very surprised? Not very surprised, disappointed. I would agree with you. I think this is like maybe a fleece in October, at a football game,
Yeah, long sleeve tee.
Long sleeve. This is a long sleeve tee take. Yes.
Yeah.
I
This
surprised.
This is like a good hayride,
Yes.
apple cider kind of take.
Yes, I would agree. Perfect. Yep, at the pumpkin patch.
This might be a little bit more of a scorcher. Justin Frazier says the Preds are not a good playoff team. They're okay, just not good enough to win a series. They can't play defense well enough as a team. What do you think of that one, Ann?
Yeah, you know what? This season, it's really hard to nail down where I feel about this one because I think there have definitely been stretches where I would say this is not a hot take. And yet there have been stretches where I'm like, check yourself. I would say this is like a Wendy's spicy chicken sandwich take, where you can eat it, you might feel it, but you can get it down and it's not painful. I wish we had more consistency from the Predators because even though we are at the end of the season, it is a little bit hard to nail down this team because just when you think we can evaluate them and accurately say, hey, this is a team that definitely their goal should be make the playoffs, not win a series. They play a game or two against a really hot playoff contention team that makes you think, now, wait a second, maybe they could, if they played their best game, play a competitive series against Calgary. It depends on the day. Yeah, this is a tough one. This is a tough one for me.
Yeah, they are so all over the place. This team is a headache waiting to happen.
It is.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I would say this is like room temperature.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is room temperature water. Like if you left your hot tea out on the counter for like 3 hours, this is that level of hot/cold. And I really think it depends on which opponent the Predators play.
True. Yes.
Calgary, I mean, they've proven they can hang with them. Colorado, I mean, they've beaten Colorado twice this year.
True.
But that was a while ago, and the Avs are certainly in a much different place now. But I mean, there's going to be types of situations, and the Preds are going to be an underdog no matter what they are.
Yes.
You need defense to get far in the Stanley Cup. That's my thing. It doesn't matter how good your goaltending is. And the way the Predators have kind of been giving up a lot of shots, I just kind of see if that trend continues, I can kind of see that eventually breaking down kind of the walls, So, yeah, I would say that's kind of right in the middle. Could see that going in either way.
Yeah, that one is a tough one for me. That one's a tough call. Depends on the day.
Depends on the day.
It depends on the day. Yeah. All right. So I want to throw one out here that I heard from a radio personality, and I use that word loosely, here in Nashville yesterday.
I think you just gave away who it's from, but
not saying any names. So was listening to the radio, and this person's take is that the Predators have trash defensemen with the exception of Roman Josi. He's the only good defenseman the Predators have.
That's not even like a hot take. That's a dumbass take.
That's almost what I was yelling word for word in my car at the radio. But go ahead.
Yeah, like that's like, yeah, that's like not even. Yeah, that's dumb as hell, Ann.
I know, but literally that's the take. The only good defenseman the Nashville Predators have is Roman Josi.
No, that's like Roman Josi is maybe the best defenseman Nashville has. Like he is on an elite level right now.
For
We've
sure.
talked about this before. Like Alex Carrier is having a fantastic season. Dante Fabro has been having a fantastic season. Matthias Ekholm is still Matthias Ekholm.
Thank you.
I think there's more to the Predators giving up all these shots than just, the blue line. I think it's kind of a concerted team effort there, like in terms of team defense. But there's certainly a lot of blue liners having really, really good seasons. So yeah.
Okay.
What an idiot.
Don't get me started. It's better if you don't. Of course, we do have more hot takes that maybe won't raise blood pressures. So we're going to get to a few more in just a minute, but do want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by our good friends at Rock Auto. With the ever increasing numbers of makes and models of cars on the road today, it is impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock everything that you need for your car. Why go there and endure pointless questions while someone behind the counter checks their computer, letting you know the only brand that their warehouse happens to carry? You have a computer with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You can save time and money when you use Rock Auto. You could save 30, 50, or 100% more on the exact same parts compared to a chain store or a car dealership. Rock Auto prices are reliably low for every customer, and they've been serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. They have everything you could possibly need for your car or truck. Go and explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com.
Speaking of spicy hot takes, Anne,
Okay.
here's one on Twitter from Nick McDonough.
Mhm.
This is another one that's kind of asked as a question. He said, regardless of whether or not we make the playoffs, is trading one of Duchene or Johansen to clear up some cap space realistic or on the table for this team?
This one I have really wrestled with.
I have had to think about this one too. I think that is a very good question.
Yeah.
Good job, Nick McDonough.
Yeah, this is a great question. And here's kind of where I landed on it. We all know that David Poile will David Poile. He is not afraid to make big moves. So I always frame any sort of trade thought or idea with the caveat that Poile will do Poile. He will do whatever, he thinks he needs to do. But I also feel like some of this decision right here between Johansen and Duchene and cap space may still not be decided based on how the team finishes the season. And I know we're just like you could spit and hit the end of the regular season, but we don't know what this team is going to do. Hopefully they're going to make the postseason tonight, but we don't know what they're going to do in the postseason. If this team somehow gets past the first round and gets into the second round, is that going to change Poile's idea of the trajectory of this team and the timeline of this team? We're in this competitive rebuild where everything is sort of on the table, but if all of a sudden you have this season with Duchene and Forsberg and Josi having these amazing seasons, and if the Predators can put together some sort of postseason magic, which it would probably have to be magic, but we're not going to be critical. Right. I can see him holding on to both of them. But again, Poile is going to Poile. I can also see him trading them. I don't think he would trade Duchene.
No, I would.
I don't think he would. I think if it would be anyone, it would be Johansen. But I can see him hanging on to both despite their price tags.
I think the Philip Forsberg factor is also in there.
Huge.
As well.
True.
Because if you're bringing, I don't know if you're Philip Forsberg and you just re-sign, for $9 million for 8 years or whatever it is, because you think you're close and you think you're competitive enough for a rebuild, and then your GM goes ahead and trades, one of, the top 5 scorers on your team, are you going to be like, what the hell are you doing, man?
Yes.
I think that's a factor. I think it would only happen. I mean, you can make an argument that maybe Johansen gets traded just because his value is probably higher now than it has been any time over the past 3 years.
True. Yes.
I don't think that happens unless Poile has a firm idea of what he wants to do with that cap space. Is Cody Glass going to slide up and be Johansen's replacement? Does he have a pretty good inkling that he's going to be able to bring in another free agent, kind of like how he pretty much knew Matt Duchene had been wanting to come to Nashville, so he traded PK Subban. I think he would have to have a pretty good game plan before he pulls the trigger on a trade. I don't see David Poile as a guy, trading somebody like Johansen just to have a little bit more cap room or to, just for picks and prospects. I think he has an idea, or he would need an idea before he does that, but certainly not out of the question.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. That's something to definitely think about, in the off season. What's it going to look like depending on how the season ends? Yeah. All right, we're going to end with a hot take from my husband, who, just let's frame it, has been wrong about Matt Duchene for a really long time, but weigh that as you will. My husband's hot take is that the NHL needs to have the franchise tag like the NFL has.
Should I start?
I mean, it's up to you. How wrong or right is Mark Kimmel?
This is no offense, Mark, but your takes have been, Paris Fashion Week hot. This is 16-year-olds Nick's opinion on Megan Fox hot.
Oh my!
Like this is scorching. And here's the thing why. First off, I think the franchise tag in NFL is dumb.
Okay.
The second thing is the NHL already is like the stingiest league when it comes to like the restriction of contracts. I mean, you think about it, most of these players don't even hit unrestricted free agency until they're like 28, 29 years old, which means they're playing the first decade of their career, pretty much locked into one team. So, imagine if you're like Philip Forsberg this year, you finally have a chance to cash in, and then, you're all of a sudden locked in. You have your career year, you can cash in, go anywhere. And then your team just, kind of locks you in against your will for 1 year at a predetermined amount. I don't like it, given I think the way NHL contracts work now. That being said, I would love the concept of maybe options. MLB, NBA have, player and team options where, a player can sign for 2 years and then have an option to opt in for a third year, or a team can opt in or opt out early, something like that. I don't hate that, because then maybe I think you'll have a little bit more flexibility with contracts. Maybe players won't feel the need to kind of commit to like 8 years at $8 million. Maybe you can sign for 4 or 5 and have a player option. That way, if your team gets stuck in a rebuild, you don't have to wind up being like, Patrick Kane situation where all of a sudden you're debating whether or not you want to stay, but you have an unmovable contract. So I like maybe that idea, but the franchise tag in the NHL, that's
not happening for you.
I would prefer that not to happen.
Not to happen. It's interesting when you think about it in reference to Philip Forsberg, in the sense that we could franchise tag him. He would be paid like the top 5% for his position. So he, would have some sort of financial bump. And then you would have some more time to negotiate. But part of my liking it comes from my absolute paranoia of the clock ticking down on Forsberg not having signed.
I feel like there's a lot
this
of
is a fear response.
There's a lot of Preds fans who are probably like, yes, all aboard the franchise tag right now.
Yeah, it's a fear response, and I don't, I acknowledge that for sure. But yeah, I do agree with you that the NHL really has a lot of, they really tie people in, they tie their players in a lot. So something Gary Batman can look at.
Yeah, this is a job for Gary Batman.
Gary Batman.
And his partner in crime, Squirrel Girl.
It's a real thing. Y'all have got to go look this up on Wikipedia.
It's
a rabbit trail, but it's one you won't regret.
This is the most interesting pre-show meeting Ann and I have ever had, was finding out about Squirrel Girl.
It's a whole thing, and her accessories are so. Just if you have a minute and you need a mental break from your life, just Wikipedia Squirrel Girl, because it will brighten your day or horrify you, or both.
Probably both. Yeah, so Predators play the Calgary Flames tonight. When we have our show tomorrow, we might have a playoff spot, which means
come on,
plenty of stuff to discuss. Until then, though, Ann, where can people find your work?
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and you can find me on Twitter at AnnK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at ontheforecheck.com as well. Also, be sure to follow the show on Twitter at LO_Predators. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like the video, subscribe, and drop us a comment. Either let us know your thoughts on today's show, or give us a hot topic to discuss about on the next show. That'll do it for us today. Thank you for making Locked On Predators your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On now for all the news and notes from last night's games. See you then.